All right. So as we get started, if you'd like to go ahead and put your name in the chat, and if there's something that you were hoping to gain from today's workshop, go ahead and let me know as we get towards the end and there's some questions. I can address some of those things at that point if it's not done through the webinar. All right. So So first of all, I would like to thank Amanda Lee and Brain Balance for inviting me to be a guest today to share this information and some resources with you. As a side note, I have a child who's gone through the Brain Balance program, and so we are definitely fans of Brain Balance. And I then wanted to pose a question to you. So what if we could transform our children's college and career journey from stressful and confusing to clear and confidently guided? And I'm here to tell you that that is possible. So my name is Lynn Bigsby. I'm an education and career path consultant, and I'm the founder of my business, Discover Your Path. So just a little bit about me. I have over 20 years of combined education and workforce development experience, spanning middle school, high school, and higher education. I've worked within as a career technical education teacher. I've worked with students in their post-secondary and workforce development, both within general education and specifically with special education. And I currently also work within industry and employer engagement. And through all of this, I started my business as an education and career path consultant. Because within my body of work, I saw that there were definite gaps in the post-secondary planning supports that students are receiving and the challenges that these gaps create for students and their families. So I set out to provide the information and guidance that students needed to make informed decisions about life after high school, including choosing an education pathway, deciding on a college major, exploring various careers, and mapping out their next steps. So choosing a career path is one of the most important decisions we make in life. And yet most of us receive little to no guidance in making this decision. So this often can lead to high school graduation stress and confusion, students repeatedly changing majors if they choose college, not meeting the prerequisites for transferring or for their major selection, which can lead to delayed college graduation, sky-high student loan debt, career misalignment, and also job dissatisfaction. So there is definitely a better way. So I'm sure many of us have had to make a decision about our career path at some point in our life. I'm sure we all know somebody who has changed their major, has had a lot of student debt, or is unhappy with their career decision. I will have parents come to me when they're frustrated because they'll ask their child what they want to do after high school or what they want as their major. And the student will say, I don't know. And they actually really don't know. And it's very stressful because they're making this really important life decision without the foundational information to base the decision on. So what the answer for this is early post-secondary planning, or as I often call it, early future planning. So why early future planning? So if anybody has known somebody, a student who is disconnected or disengaged in school, you're familiar with this. So more and more students are they're purpose driven, and they want to see a return on their investment so that when they're sitting in class, they're able to see the connection between themselves, and they're able to answer the questions, what does this have to do with me, and why do I have to learn this? So Courses in high school, especially CTE courses, can help a student try out potential career pathway programs of study and decide what they like, and just as importantly, what they don't like. Activities like career exploration, internships, job shadows, and informational interviews can help students make a more informed decision on their post-secondary decisions because they've actually engaged in some activities of exploration. Early career planning can also help students with an informed college essay because they've done things that they can write about in that essay versus kind of trying to come up with something, senior year to talk about in an essay. And also an informed college major selection because they've kind of laid the groundwork for making that decision on. And ultimately, there's an increased likelihood of alignment between themselves and their career choice. So just an example with the college essay, I was speaking with a parent whose child had like a 4.6. He had decided in senior year that he wanted to study computer science and applied to UCSD. They hired a college essay writer, and he still didn't get in. And so, thinking about it, had he done some of the groundwork earlier on and was able to talk about a job shadow that he did that inspired him to then take these classes in high school and this project that he worked on and the internship that he did, that makes for a much more well-rounded essay. And not to say that, that would have guaranteed that he got in, but in hearing from admissions at college, they're really looking for some of those kinds of stories because they do see, a lot of students with 4.6 GPAs, and so they're looking for something else there. Let's see. So all of this helps students to make a more intentional and informed decision, which ultimately yields better results than kind of making a last minute best guess. So sometimes people will ask, what is the ideal age to start some of this future planning? And I would say, ideally, it really is in elementary school to kind of set that stage and put in motion an awareness of the possibilities that are available to students outside of kind of the TV career type jobs that are out there. And at this age, it's really not about putting pressure on students or them having it all figured out. It's really about building self-awareness and sparking curiosity about the world of work and its connection to that. So what does early future planning look like? College or any post-secondary preparation begins with career preparation. And this is the crucial piece that is most often missed. And it's what makes my approach different. A lot of times, the approach to college is that it's an extension of high school. But really, what are you hoping that your child will gain by going to college or some post-secondary training? What is the outcome or return on investment that you would like to see? For most of us, it's an education that leads to a well-paying career. So if that's the goal, we want to start there and then reverse engineer the path to get there. So an example would be like going on vacation. We don't go on vacation by showing up at the airport. We decide where we want to go, what is the destination first, and then we figure out all the details that lead to getting us to that destination. So where do we begin with career preparation? It always begins with us, and it begins with self-discovery. So if any of you have ever heard of Ikigai before, and you see this diagram here, Ikigai is a Japanese concept that means that which gives your life worth, meaning, or purpose. So if you look at it here, it's a combination of what you're good at, what you love, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. And so Ikigai is the perfect balance of passion, purpose, and sustainability. So when I work with students, I begin with assessing their interests, their strengths, their skills, and also their values. And we look at how these align with different career paths. And then once we've figured that part out, we want to then look at those career paths that have a strong job outlook. So what is the prediction of the need for this job in the future? Because if there's not a need, it can be very difficult to find a job. And that can be really frustrating and discouraging for people. Another key piece is that it has a sustainable income, because, you know, if it doesn't, not to say that that's not an interest to continue to pursue, but maybe that's more of a hobby versus something that is going to be our livelihood. So it's really important to look at that whole combination of things. So in addition to having this really help kind of set the stage for making informed decisions for post-secondary, it also, this self-exploration really helps students benefit in figuring a little bit about themselves. And, you know, many adults even can struggle with being able to name their strengths. So it's a very empowering exercise. Okay, so once your child has a good idea of some career paths that align with who they are as a person, self-exploration is going to be the next step. So people will ask me, well, how does somebody know what they want to do? How does a teenager figure out what they want to do? And it's really the same way that we figure out about anything, and it's exploration. So how do you know that you're good at a sport or a musical instrument? You try it. How do you figure out what your career path is? It's through exploration. So those people who are changing their majors, changing jobs, going back to school for something else, all of that is exploration. And that's okay, but it's not the ideal way to do it, because that can be very expensive, it can be very stressful, and it's not always doable if you have competing responsibilities. So exploring early on before it counts really helps to be less stressful and provides the foundation to make the decisions on. So what does exploration look like? In career education, we call this work-based learning, and it includes career exploration, so doing some career research. Job shadows could fall under that, informational interviews, anything that helps students to kind of take some of those career paths that align with them and learn a little bit more about it and see, does that resonate with them and how they see themselves in the future. Another area is kind of connecting the dots between what they're learning in class and how that could apply in industry. So having a guest speaker, doing a project that would be a real world project, doing a work site tour, seeing, you know, within this area, would I want to work kind of in a small business? Do I see myself within a large business? Would I want to be working on my own? Some of those kinds of things can help. And then also gaining experience. So doing internships or having work experience, even volunteer work, if it's not possible to have this large of a time commitment. Volunteer work can allow students to gain some of that experience. Okay, and in CTE classes, this is oftentimes embedded within the class. However, if a school does not have CTE courses, it's something students can do on their own, and I also support students in this exploration. Okay, so then looking at diving in a little bit more about exploration in high schools. So my suggestion is to review high school options early, and I suggest to start no later than 7th grade. And that's because usually by the early spring of 8th grade, students select their high school courses. So it's important to kind of explore these options early on. Also, in many districts, you're able to choose which high school your student attends. So if you learn about them early on, it gives you some time to make an informed choice. Just to give you an example, I was working with a student who went to Poway High School, and he really wanted to be a firefighter. And we did all the assessments, and it really did align with him. And what he didn't know, and what his family didn't know, is that within the same district at Mount Carmel High School, they actually had a whole fire science program. And so he was a junior, and so we were able to have him fitted into his schedule as a senior to continue at Poway High School, but to take classes at Mount Carmel in addition to his coursework at Poway, so that he could begin those classes. So had we never worked together, he may not have ever known, that even was an option available to him. So kind of doing that research early on and learning about what's out there is important. So CTE pathways are a really great way to kind of get a start. And again, like I said, learn what you like and what you don't necessarily like before you're paying for that coursework. But again, the research is really important in that it's an informed choice, because in a lot of schools, they do require that you stick with those for 2 years. And so if it's something that, this student doesn't really enjoy at all, sometimes they can kind of be, stuck within those classes. So doing that groundwork ahead of time can help to make that a good choice. So some other examples of CTE classes, like I mentioned, the fire science with that student. Other examples could be like business management, engineering design, child development, software systems and development, biotechnology, and healthcare operations are all some great examples of CTE classes that are out there. And just to another thing I didn't mention earlier, so that same student with the fire science class, not only did he take those courses at Mount Carmel, we also had him connect with a guest speaker to learn a little bit more firsthand about a career in firefighting. We were able to have him learn about an internship opportunity with the firefighters so that he could gain that hands-on experience. We explored all the post-secondary options that he could continue his education there. So by the time he graduated high school, he had courses under his belt that he, was able to learn about it. He was able to speak with somebody directly. He had an opportunity for an internship, and knew what options were, going into college. So if you compare that to somebody who's, halfway through their senior year trying to make a decision on that with very little information to base it on. So, and it really helps with that informed choice. So some other options, dual enrollment are great options. Not only does it give students their some college credit while they're in high school, if the school doesn't have those offerings, they can take it in college. Each district does dual enrollment a little bit differently, so that would be something you'd want to learn about with the district. Extracurricular classes are also a great way to augment what the school has. So if they don't have any of the programs that are kind of what your child wants to explore, some extracurricular classes could be a way to do that. Clubs are an additional way that students can get involved and kind of try things out. So those are great ways, and students can always start a club if if there's not a club established already. Then I wanted to talk a little bit about, for special education, I wanted to bring some awareness to TPP and workability. So TPP is Transition Partnership Program, and the other program is Workability. And these are both programs specifically for special education students, and they support students in their post-secondary planning. So, you know, some of the kind of career counseling, looking at next steps after high school, some deciding on careers, all of those things that I had just talked about. They work on those things with students. And with the TPP program, it also sets students up to work with DOR after high school. So so those are really great programs to see if you have a special education student, to look into it and see if they have those program supports available, and to request those. Okay, so we covered a lot about what early post-secondary planning looks like and why it's important. So now I wanted to get into transitions and options. So looking at university, community college, or trade schools, when you're looking to make your decisions, a couple things to keep in mind is that you really want to align the education, so whether it's college or training or some kind of combination of both, to your child's career goal. So like we talked about, you want to figure out the destination first, and then what is the path to get there. Your budget, because college is very expensive. So looking at your budget and how, you know, how that aligns with different options. And the individual needs and values of your students. So each school can be different and have different types of offerings. So those are all things to look into. And then really important to make sure that students have an awareness and an understanding of student debt. So not every sustainable income career requires a four-year degree, and not all colleges have the same program. So it's important to do the research and have the goal in mind when making a decision. Many students are unaware of student loan debt and the impact that that can have on them. So having those conversations ahead of time and having that kind of weigh into maybe the options would also be important. And also, you know, important about the sustainable career to be able to pay off that student debt later on. So if college is the choice, when considering a college, you want to learn about the student services that are available on campus and encourage your child to connect early on with the Career Center and utilize the student services. And also come prepared to share a plan with the academic counselors. So for the college route, really encourage your student to use these no-charge services. I've heard many college students say that if it wasn't for, you know, whatever student service program that they were involved in, they would have not made it through college. So these can really provide some supports for students on campus. The Career Center is very often underutilized and yet offers really great opportunities and resources for students, from career counseling to interviewing skills to reviewing resumes, all of those kinds of things to help students in their college journey and connecting that to work. So especially if your child is maybe, you know, within that senior year, or if you have a college age student now, I would really encourage that they make an appointment at the Career Center and kind of check in throughout their college journey. So just want to take a moment to also note the importance of some internship or work experience, not only while in high school, but also in college. Working with employers, they are often looking for experience in addition to education. So they want to know not only what you know, but what you can do. So having that on the resume is very important. And then as far as the academic counseling, so if you've ever heard that ChatGPT is only as good as the prompting, it's very similar for working with academic counselors. They only really have like a half-hour time period to work with a student and schedule the classes. So they will help your students schedule their classes based on the information that's provided to them. So if you come in prepared, or if your student comes in prepared, that makes it a much better experience for them. So, for example, my friend's son really had a difficult time in college, had dropped out a couple times, really, had realized that going for an associate's degree was going to be a good choice for him, and was thinking about hospitality. So he went in to see the academic counselor and ended up coming out with no hospitality courses and 2 psychology classes because he had said he enjoyed psychology. So again, kind of going in, being prepared how to help them to help you is going to be important. Okay, major planning. So it's important that students align their college major to their career goal and understand the career paths related to their major, including the education requirements for careers aligned to their major. So a lot of times students will come in and, again, they'll love psychology, but not realize that for a lot of careers in psychology, a master's degree is going to be required. And that, there are some with a bachelor's degree, there are some avenues that offer sustainable incomes, but not as much as at the master's level. Or students who maybe choose like a philosophy degree. Excellent, for continuing education, can be a great minor to different degrees, but can be difficult to find a sustainable income career with a bachelor's degree with philosophy. So things like that, it's important to know what the career goal is at the end of that, and then also what the education path is going to look like when setting out. And then for special education students, so I had mentioned earlier DOR, or Department of Rehabilitation. So if a student starts the TPP program in high school, it's a really easy transition to continue working with DOR after high school. But even if they're not in a TPP program or it's not offered at a high school, this is a program that's available to students. So it's important to connect with them because they can actually provide some career support and education support, as well as oftentimes financial support for students. So connecting with them, and then also with the disability student services on campus. The IEP goes away when students graduate from high school, but the disability student services, it's called different things at different campuses, but they can actually help put some accommodations in place to continue to support students through their college journey there. So it's really important to connect with them, because I've seen students who said, oh, I don't think I need my IEP anymore. They go on to college and they have a difficult time because they didn't realize how much support they were getting with their IEP. So that's really important to do. And DOR is great because students can take, if the financial assistance can help them if maybe, let's say they wanted to go for the Promise program, which I'll talk about in the next slide, but taking a full set of courses is too much for them. It's helpful because they can still continue to receive that financial assistance with taking the coursework that's better aligned for them. Anything else I wanted to mention here? Okay, and so then just wanted to say, based on students' goals and also the budget, I would definitely want to point out that community colleges and trade schools are a viable option for students. So kind of diving into that, why you may want to add community college to your short list of top colleges. So looking at the cost of San Diego State right now is just a little bit under $9,000 a year, and UCSD is a little under $17,000 a year, and that's without living costs or anything else. So it's very expensive. So if a student's not sure, they're changing majors 3 or 4 times, it can take longer to graduate, and that can really add up the cost. So community college provides an opportunity for students to be able to explore at a lower cost. They also offer, in California, they offer the Promise program, which is 2 years of free college and a book voucher for first-time, full-time students enrolled in 12 units that reside in California and maintain a good academic standing. So that is a really great way to start off if you're planning a 4-year program, and to have that first 2 years free, or if you're planning on a associate degree program, to have the entire degree for free. So there is some planning involved in that. So it's something that you would want to look into and check with your local community college. Some other great things about community colleges is that they have smaller class sizes. So that may be really important as a value to your student. Maybe they need a little bit of extra help, or they want to have a professor who knows them on a first name basis. Some of those kinds of things can be important to students. Another thing a lot of parents don't know about is the transfer guarantee. This is an amazing program where students can oftentimes get into their first choice college after completing their first 2 years at a community college through that transfer guarantee program. Whereas had they gone directly from high school, they might not have gotten into that program. So that's a really great program to look into as well, especially if you could do the first 2 years free and then transfer directly into, a first choice. That just seems like a really win-win there. And then, lower student loan debt when you're starting off with those first 2 years free as well. And so, like I said before, not all high-paying jobs require a 4-year degree. Many high-paying jobs can be obtained with an associate's degree or certification. So it's not even necessary. Sometimes people are paying for a 4-year degree for something that they could have done with an associate's degree or certification. Couple other things about community colleges, they're often very hands-on versus theory. And like I said, a lot of times employers are wanting to see what you've done, not just what you've learned. And so being able to show that on a resume can be advantageous for them. A lot of the professors that work at a community college also work at universities. So you're really getting a lot of times the same rigorous academic work, just at a lower cost. Many adjunct faculty also work within industry. So not only are they having up-to-date knowledge on what's the alignment within industry, they often can have different connections in the community that can help students afterwards. And then lastly, and I think this is also so important, is that choosing a community college can also take the pressure off in high school, allowing students to have a little bit more of a balanced life versus, trying to cram in every single AP class, staying up to 3 in the morning studying, and missing out on some of those childhood things that they may not have time to do again later. So I think that's always something that's important to consider as well. So all right, so we have covered a lot of information today. So I wanted to check in and see if there were any questions that you have for me. And then I also have a couple questions for you as well. Any questions? And you can come off chat. I think, Amanda, is that okay? Or put
Yeah,
it in bold.
if you all are okay with your voice being recorded, that's fine. Or you can type into the chat box.
And then Amanda, with my screen up here, I can't see the chat box. So if you want to just let me know if you see anything there.
Got it. I will be your voice.
Okay, perfect.
No questions so far, but we do have a couple comments. Casey had mentioned earlier when you were speaking that the website Think College is very helpful to filter through possible options as well. So Think College. And then Chris mentioned or said, I'm sold. Max is going to community college.
Yeah, yes, I know Chris, and I said, this would be a great one because he had been asking about community college, and I am a huge advocate for community colleges, and I think parents just don't know enough about that. There's some misconceptions, so I'd love to be able to share information about it.
Well, I have a question. So this was super helpful as I knew it would be. And I see at Brain Balance so many different types of families on all ages. And for the families who aren't even thinking about it, what is your recommendation for a professional like myself? Or maybe you talk to a friend who knows someone who probably needs to be talking about this. Like, what is your suggestion for putting this on someone's radar?
Yeah, so I mean, and this is where a lot of times, and this was basically how I had started my business, is I would be talking to somebody who would say, no, I'm really worried about my child. They're really struggling in college because they're not able to make that connection. They're thinking about dropping out. And so then I'll say, well, I can actually help them with this. Or, I just met with a parent last week who was saying, you know, I'm not sure that how my son will do in college. With he has ADHD, and I've provided a lot of supports for him, but I feel like community college, he's worked so hard, and I feel like, that he, might want to start at a 4-year college. And the thing is with community college, if you've put in the work, that's always great if you're planning to transfer to a 4-year school, because you have those skills already laid down to then transfer on. And so, the skills of a strong work ethic for work, and even at community college, like I said, I think a lot of times we think of it as less rigorous, but that's definitely not the case across the board. So I would say, there are resources definitely out there. I am definitely a resource, and I will share my information here in a minute as well. But I think, a lot of times what happens is that people aren't thinking about this until there's the concern. And I feel like if we are getting the awareness and the information out there earlier, then then we kind of it's a more ideal situation where instead of waiting till where a student is frustrated or or discouraged, we can kind of be proactive about it. And so, yeah, so I think, like I said, I can work with students and I definitely can share information and resources that can help with that as well. Any other
Yeah, there's
questions
some
or
more like comments right now. We have, yes, I am in transition. I am a transition specialist for a high school district, and so many parents become overwhelmed at their child's last IEP meeting.
yes.
So everyone can relate here. And then another person said, I really appreciate you sharing information about TPP/WA, Promise Program, and Transfer Guarantee Program.
Oh, good. Yes, I know. I mean, these are great resources. And again, a lot of students don't know or parents know that these are resources available, and not every district has them, but it's important to look into. And I did work with the TPP program, so that's how I know a lot about it as well. So, and it's wonderful, such a great resource for parents. So I think some of the things that you brought up have also, because I had a couple of questions for the group as well, but they've kind of have been addressed. So I was going to ask if there were anything that you would want to put into action that you learned from today. So I heard community college on the radar there. Was there anything else that you kind of thought, I want to start this from learning this information? Otherwise, I also wanted to check in and see if there were any aha moments of information that you didn't know about or think much about before, or if there was anything that I didn't cover that you wish that I would have covered that I could include maybe next time, or that I can answer now. Amanda, anything in the chat for that?
Not so far.
So if questions come up later, because I know that was a lot of information. So if some questions come up later, or if you wanted to reach out and learn how I could support your student, you can share your contact information in the chat, or if you'd like to reach out to me. Again, my name is Lynn Bigsby. My business is Discover Your Path. The best way to contact me is really here at my email address, so lynn@discoveryourcareerpath.com. And if you want to see a little bit more about the services that I provide and the methodology that I use, my website is discoveryourcareerpath.com.